Hi, I'm Lalita from Let's Speak English, and today it rained cats and dogs. If you're like me and you've learned this idiom in school, then just forget it. Nobody says this anymore. So in this video, I have prepared 20 super common idioms so you can use it in a typical IELTS speaking exam. Because your examiner will check if you can use the idiomatic language. And if you can use it effectively, it's a sign of a band 9 score. So to start off, the first idiom is a blessing in disguise. So it means a good thing which initially seemed bad. For example, my company made me redundant, but this turned out to be such a blessing in disguise because a month later I found an amazing job. The next idiom is the best of both worlds. To have an advantage to two contrasting options. That's what it means. So let's say I often work in a co-working space having the best of both the worlds. So I still work for myself, but I'm surrounded with people with whom I can chat with. The best of both worlds. Do not forget to like and subscribe to my channel, Let's Speak English. Moving on, don't judge the book by its cover. This means you can't know what someone or something is like just by looking at the appearance. In part 2 speaking exam, you often need to describe a person. So let's say he often wears old discolored t-shirts with shabby shoes. But don't judge the book by its cover. He's one of the top paid architects in the country. So that's how you use it. Moving on. If you're caught between a rock and a hard place, it means you're in a difficult situation. It could be a rock and a hard place. It means you have to make a choice between two equally unpleasant options. For example, at work, I found out that my friend is about to be fired. So I found myself between a rock and a hard place. Either I would warn her about what's coming, or I disclose confidential information. The next one is to cut corners. This means to do something in the easiest, cheapest, and the fastest way. It often has a negative meaning. For example, let's say he often tried to cut corners, so I wasn't surprised when he was fired. Moving on, a piece of cake means something that is very easy. Maybe something like this. Passing that exam was a piece of cake. Moving on, the last straw. It means the latest in a series of problems which makes a situation impossible to accept. For example, I have been having problems with my landlord, but when he refused to replace the broken washing machine, it was the last straw, so I moved out. Moving on, to bite more than you can chew. It means to take up tasks that are too big to handle all by yourself. Let's say I volunteered to give a speech the day before my exams. No, I don't know how I'll manage both. I think I have bitten more than I can chew. Moving on, to cost an arm and a leg. It means that something is very expensive. For example, it costs an arm and leg, but I have bought it anyway. My leather coat. Another way to say that something is very expensive is to break the bank, which with current exchange rate, you go on a holiday would break the bank. There's no way I could afford it. To make ends meet. Now this means to make enough money to pay for food and bills and all your other expenses. So my parents had 4 kids, so they often struggled to make the 2 ends meet. To put all your eggs in one basket. This means to base your success on one person or on one cause of action. I have applied to several universities because I don't want to put all my eggs in one basket. A far cry from. It means to be very different from something else. The movie is a far cry from the book. Now, people use this expression to emphasize how drastically dissimilar 2 things are. Now, in the heat of the moment. Now, this means you do or say something because you're so angry or excited. In the heat of the moment, it seemed like the only thing I could do, as an example. To cut a long story short. Now this means a conclusion to a long story or to give a short summary. Now you can use this to end you can use this especially in the end of part 2 in talk 2, indicating to the examiner that you are about to finish. To cut a long story short, it was a terrible trip. Once in a blue moon. Now this means very rarely. My brother lives in Australia, so I see him once in a blue moon. A drop in the ocean. Now this means that something is so small that it doesn't really have an impact. So some countries plant new trees, but it's just a drop in the ocean. The tip of the iceberg. It means that there is a bigger hidden problem, which when it comes to global warming, hot summers are just the tip of the iceberg. To go Dutch. Now this means to share the cost of something, especially a meal in a restaurant. The youngsters these days prefer to go Dutch even when they go on a date. Now, isn't that really wonderful? Well, to compare apples and oranges. Now, this means to compare completely 2 different things. Let's say for example, I don't know which hobby I enjoy more, to play the piano or doing yoga. It's like comparing apples to oranges. Well, as you see, it's possible to use idioms in a way that is so natural that they attract no attention at all but give you some extra points. So with that, I come to the end of this lesson. Do not forget to hit that like button and subscribe to my channel, Let's Speak English.